Have you ever wondered what it's like to step inside a house that everyone in London whispers about, yet no one dares to enter? Tonight I'm taking you inside one of the most haunted Victorian houses in the heart of London, where shadows move on their own, doors slam at midnight, and whispers of the past echo through every corridor. If you live in the UK, US, Canada, or Australia, and you think you've seen real horror, think again, because this story is nothing like the tales you hear back home. Welcome to the Dark Hour, Tales. The house stood silently at the end of Cobblestone Alley in East London, an imposing structure from the 1800s. Its bricks were blackened with age, ivy crawled up every wall, and the tall windows seemed like eyes watching every passerby. Locals called it the Whitmore House, but rarely spoke of it aloud. Legend had it that anyone who stayed overnight never saw daylight again, or if they did, they were never the same. Tourists passing by could feel a chill even on the warmest summer days. Emily and James, a young couple from London, didn't believe in ghosts. They had explored old buildings before, often laughing at silly urban legends. But this Victorian mansion had a reputation so eerie, even thrill-seekers hesitated. One rainy November evening, armed with flashlights and a camera, they decided to see for themselves. As they stepped onto the creaking porch, the wind howled like a chorus of mournful voices. The front door, heavy and ornate, seemed almost to resist their push. A shiver ran down James's spine as Emily whispered, "Are you sure about this?" He laughed nervously. "Don't tell me you're scared. It's just an old house." Inside, the air was thick, heavy with the scent of dust, mold, and something else. The floorboards moaned under their weight, and every shadow seemed to twist just out of the corner of their eyes. The living room was vast, with a chandelier hanging precariously, covered in cobwebs. Old portraits lined the walls, and each face seemed to follow them silently as they moved. Emily found a journal on a dusty table. Its pages were brittle, ink-faded, yet legible. The entries spoke of strange happenings, footsteps when no one was there, whispers at night, and objects moving on their own. The final page was chilling. "Tonight I am not alone. They are watching. I feel them behind the walls, just beyond sight. God help me if I sleep." A sudden thump from upstairs made Emily scream. James shone his flashlight toward the staircase. Nothing, but the sound came again, louder. It was coming from the master bedroom. Emily and James stood frozen in the pitch-black hallway. The whisper repeated, this time louder, almost inside their heads. "You shouldn't be here." James fumbled with his flashlight, finally managing to flick it back on. The dim beam revealed the long corridor ahead, lined with old paintings whose eyes seemed to follow every step. They moved cautiously, each creak of the floorboard echoing like thunder. When they reached the master bedroom, the door that had been ajar moments ago now slammed shut violently. The sound rattled the old walls. Emily's heart raced. "James says we should leave." "No," he whispered. "We need to know what's happening here." Inside the room, the air was colder than outside, their breaths visible in small, trembling clouds. The furniture looked untouched, yet the room felt alive, almost breathing. A rocking chair began to move slowly on its own, back and forth, with a rhythmic creak that sounded like someone counting or watching. On the desk, the journal from earlier had turned its pages by itself. One entry, written in a shaky hand, read, "They come closer every night. Shadows that move on their own, voices that call my name. If you read this, you are next." Suddenly, a cold gust slammed the window shut, and the candle on the fireplace flickered violently. A shadow appeared near the ceiling, stretching across the walls, impossibly long, like a dark hand reaching for them. Emily screamed, but James grabbed her arm. The shadows twisted and warped, forming shapes almost human, almost alive. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, as if hundreds of voices surrounded them. "Leave or join us." The couple tried to run, but the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, the doorways bending and disappearing. Every turn they made, the whispers followed, always just behind. It was as if the house itself had a mind, a consciousness, and it did not want them to leave. A sudden cold touch ran across Emily's neck. She spun around but saw nothing. Only the journal, now lying open on the floor, its pages scribbled with a single phrase repeated over and over, They are here, always watching, always waiting. The camera they had brought to document the house began to flicker. Static filled the screen, but through the noise, faint figures moved in the background. Real or imagined, they couldn't tell. James whispered, barely audible. We need to find the front door." But the house was no longer the one they had entered. It had changed. The walls pulsated slightly, the shadows shifted with intention, and a low, unearthly laugh echoed from above, bouncing off the ceiling, surrounding them entirely. And in that moment they realized whatever haunted the Whitmore house, it had been waiting for them, and it wasn't planning to let them go so easily. Emily and James ran blindly through the endless corridors of the Whitmore house. Every door they tried slammed shut before they could reach it. As if the house itself was alive, mocking their desperation. The shadows twisted faster now, forming distorted human shapes with glowing eyes that followed their every step. Emily clutched James's arm. We're trapped," she whispered, her voice trembling. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the hallway. The portraits on the walls seemed to scream silently, their painted eyes bleeding shadows that slithered toward the floor. The whispering voices overlapped, forming a deafening chorus. "You cannot leave, not tonight." James remembered the journal. He picked it up from where it had fallen and began reading aloud the final entry. "The house feeds on fear. Only by facing the truth can you escape. But many never do." As he finished the sentence, the air shifted. The shadows froze for a moment, as if listening. A single door appeared at the end of the hallway, a heavy wooden door they hadn't noticed before. It radiated a faint golden light, a stark contrast to the darkness surrounding them. Emily and James sprinted toward it. Just as they reached for the handle, a cold, invisible force slammed them against the floor. Emily gasped. James struggled to breathe. The whispering rose to a crescendo. "Stay, forever." Then silence. A blinding light filled the hallway. The shadows dissolved into nothingness. Emily and James found themselves standing outside the Whitmore house, dawn breaking over London's skyline. They were alive but forever changed. Emily whispered, still shaking, "Did we really escape?" James could only nod. The house behind them stood silent once again, hiding its secrets, waiting for the next unsuspecting visitors.